And welcome to your LSU Football Fix. I'm Preston Guy, staff writer at TigerBait.com. With me, who will be here for all Monday nights this football season, is my co-host Zack Nagy of LSU Country on SportsIllustrated.com. Zack, what's going on, man?
Not too much. Long day today. Been in the heat all day, but it was a good fall camp. It was a good day today. Good day.
Yeah, well, it looks like that little red has kind of glazed over to a bit of a tan, man. It looks good. Did you get your sunscreen? I see you've been working some sunscreen. So first things first tonight, I'm just gonna come right out and address it because we have this comment. What's going on with Harris? Please help me. What's going on with Denver Harris? What's going on with Denver Harris? Everybody wants to know what's going on with Denver Harris. So I'm sure I'm gonna address it now, and then we're gonna get more people come into the show as we go on. So Denver Harris was not at practice today. You were there, did not see him. I did see him on practice on Saturday. Now, we do not have a reason as to why. Brian Kelly will address the media on Wednesday, which is when we should hear more about that officially. I've done some digging. I can't find anything from any reputable source. Okay. I've seen the same rumors that y'all have. I'm not going to spread them because I can't verify anything. And I presume the same goes for you, right? You don't have anything official on Denver Harris, right, Zack?
I don't have anything. All I can say is that he wasn't on the practice field today, and that's really just about it. And then the team picture, of course.
Of course. Yeah. Which is why everybody's freaking out because he wasn't at practice, but then he wasn't there for the team picture. So with that being said, I'll give you the speculation that I have. If something prevented him from being at practice, right, he wouldn't have been there for the team photo. They whoever's at practice is a team photo. So if it's sickness, like perhaps COVID, maybe that's trending up. If you have COVID, you can't come up anywhere around practice, right? Or the flu or anything like that, right? So that's possibility A. Possibility B is you start to look at the context around Denver Harris. I mean, you've seen him in practice. He's been kind of buried on the depth chart. There's a lot of corners on this team, and I haven't seen him run with the ones since he got here. That includes spring ball. And in fact, at times he's been running with the threes. You in your practice report, you've got him as the fifth corner at best right now, right?
I do. For the most part, I mean, the rise of Ashton Stamps has kind of really pushed Denver Harris down the depth chart a little bit more. You have Terrence Welch as well. So
yeah,
in my opinion, I would say Denver Harris is probably your number 5 cornerback on the depth chart right now, yeah.
Which, by the way, coaches have just been off the charts raving about Ashton Stamps, and including Matt House this weekend just had a raving review about him. So there's that. There's the struggles at practice. There's the struggles getting on the plate. We're talking about a 5-star, high-ego kid who, probably feels like he should be cracking a starting lineup. And then you add in that, of course, first week of fall camp, there was a big fight at practice, the big brawl that you saw, right? And one of the things coming out of that was it was very disappointing to see Denver Harris not only got engaged with it, but took his helmet off, right? Which is like, that's like the number one rule of brawls. Don't take your helmet off. Don't get into the madness.
You could say He got ripped off. You could say he got ripped off of his head too in the scrum. Like he might not have necessarily taken it off, but it could have been ripped off in the middle of that scrum. I mean, that was an absolute just an ugly scene for the team. But
so
yeah, what you're saying true.
You saw it get ripped off. You believe it was ripped off.
I can't say that I saw it get ripped off. When you're in the heat of the moment like that and people are going at each other, I mean, it's certainly possible that it was ripped off by somebody else. Yeah.
Because let's make an important distinction here. Taking your helmet off in a brawl and having it ripped off by someone else, those are two very, very different situations with different outcomes. So, there's been buzz about that and attitude and all that. All I can tell you official is he wasn't at practice today. He wasn't in the team picture today. And coaches have said nothing. I've done some sniffing and I can't get anything official. Nothing I'm going to pass on to y'all. So that's the word on Denver Harris. That's the first time we'll talk about it tonight. That's the longest we'll talk about it tonight. We're probably going to have to talk about it 15 more times. In fact, every time you hear the word Denver, just take a drink, guys. Take a drink tonight. We're going to hear it a lot, But anyways, before we get moving on, I do want to thank our show sponsor tonight, Celebrity Theaters, for making our show possible. Of course, Celebrity Theaters, located in Baton Rouge, Ruston, and Broussard, is the Louisiana's only locally operated theater. For years, Celebrity Theaters has been committed to providing a total family experience and entertainment to all of its patrons. Because it's locally owned and operated, you're guaranteed to get a clean facility, better pricing, superior customer service, state-of-the-art technology. The Baton Rouge location has an invigorating arcade with more than 50 arcade games. For those of you with kids, they're going to love it. It's the largest in town. They have a bar featuring wine, beer, frozen drinks, oversized reclining seats, and of course, they have the Dolby Atmos sound system with 3D sound. It with all that completed together, it is the largest in Baton Rouge. So it's local, but it's big. So that's Celebrity Theaters. Y'all go check it out. I remember growing up, if you had told me you can get beer and go watch a movie in a Lazy Boy, you would have blown my mind with that. So you were at practice today, and you had a really good write-up on your website, si.com, LSU Country, of your practice notes. You had a lot there for sure. What stood out most to you?
I mean, it's hard to not enjoy what Ashton Stamps is doing on the field for the most part, but something that really stood out to me was, the running backs. You had Armani Goodwin, Logan Diggs, and Josh Williams all off to the side on the bike, not participating in practice, which was nice because it gave some more reps to freshman Trey Holly. You saw Noah Kane take, starting reps as well. So it was really nice to see, the divvying of running back snaps. You had Trey Bradford even getting, some first team run as well. So those three guys kind of carried the load for the most part. And it was really nice to see, but it's also not nice to see three of your running backs in the corner on bikes. So there's a trade-off in that aspect of things. But, it was nice to see some of the younger guys get some snaps. Trey Bradford get his snaps as well. So that was something that really stood out to me for the most part was, your running backs kind of hurt, bouncing back, going back and forth. So, yeah, for sure.
What stands out to me is Trey Bradford's a guy who's been in and out of the doghouse throughout his career. It does not look like he's in any sort of doghouse now, and he looks physically like he's ready to play. And I think a lot of people were kind of overlooking him coming into the season because you had 8 backs, and he's the one, he's not the new freshman coming in. He's not a high recruit. He's not a returning player. He's just kind of a guy who's coming back from not playing and transferring in and out. So I do think he's done a good part. I'll say on Saturday, Caleb Jackson did not have his best practice. He had 2 plays that caused turnovers. Did you see Caleb Jackson out there this morning?
I did, and it's ironic that you say that because as a team, there were no turnovers at all today. Interceptions, fumbles, nothing. Wow. So Saturday might have had one thing where, the team was kind of slacking in that regard, but they turned it up in a big way on Monday. And to what I saw, and from the media point of view, I don't think any of us saw a single turnover on the day. So that was a really impressive sight to see on that end.
And that's not particularly surprising. I mean, obviously on Saturday, the turnovers we saw on Saturday were very avoidable, right? Like, Jaden Daniels hit Caleb Jackson in between the numbers, and he just popped it in the air, and Sage Ryan just broke loose. But what has surprised me is just how crisp and clean Jaden Daniels looks in practice. And Nussmeier, while he has some flashes up, especially his connection with Chris Hilton is very strong, right? That deep ball to him is beautiful, and Chris Hilton's speed is just elite. But he has more ups and downs. He some inaccuracies. He's not nearly as consistent as Jaden Daniels. Has that caught your eye, and what did you see out of him today?
I can completely agree with that in the sense of, hitting on Jaden Daniels first. It's been impressive. I've been seeing him hit on his intermediate throws. That was something today that caught my eye for the most part. Not necessarily, chunking it down the field and just crushing it vertically, but getting the intermediate throws down first is something that's been, really impressive in that regard. And then kind of switching gears to Garrett Nussmeier. He's still learning. He's been trying to avoid the gunslinger term for quite some time now. And, he has his moments where he just, chucks it down the field and, prays that, Chris Hilton or a vertical threat can get to the ball. But he's still learning. Today wasn't necessarily his best day. There were a couple of incompletions. But that connection of him and Chris Hilton is something that I'm keeping my eye on for the foreseeable future. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Next year, the Chris Hilton Nussmeier could be big. But I think it's very obvious this is Jaden Daniels' team. I didn't see him have an incompletion on Saturday. I didn't. Other than the hit Caleb Jackson in the numbers and it gets picked off, I didn't see an incompletion out of him. And it was very clear. Now, the one thing I'll nitpick in 7-on-7, and this is the DBs have had mostly a rough fall camp for the most part. But in the 7-on-7, they did force Jaden Daniels into a lot more checkdowns than I would like to see. That's one of the handful of things I'm looking for Jaden Daniels to improve upon, because he was a good quarterback last year, objectively. Like there's no debating that he was good last year. It is, can he take that step forward and be great? Can he be the 7th best quarterback in the country, what most pundits are saying? Can he lead LSU to a championship? And 8.9 yards per yards of depth per target, good for 118th in the country last year. That's not really going to get, you got to get a little more vertical. So that was one of the criticisms I had of him, that I saw rear its ugly head. But I read your practice report today, and you're saying he was a little more intermediate today. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. For the most part, he was connecting with Brian Thomas a little bit on that outside, and it was around that 15-yard, through the air type of pass. And it was impressive to see, like you were saying, 8 yards isn't really going to cut it. So you have vertical threats on this team, and you're even seeing freshmen emerge like Sheldon Sampson Jr. I mean, that's a guy who can go down the field and use his length and strength to pinpoint the ball at its highest point and come down with it at any time. So you have to utilize your weapons. And as the offensive line continues to get their continuity back as well, it's just going to give him more time in the pocket, let the receivers get down the field, and utilize the playmakers that you have. So today, certainly it caught my eye on the intermediate ball. And as the next couple of days go on, I'm hoping that we can see some more down the field plays as well.
It's funny you mentioned Shelton Sampson. The first time I walked out there, I mistook him for Brian Thomas. He is physically everything you want. Yep. I'll say this. Is it just me, or does he seem a little raw? He seems like he needs some time to learn his routes and to really learn how to reel the ball in consistently. He's needs to work on his control. Have you made the same observation, or what do you think?
That is extremely accurate. He's a raw prospect, and I feel like with Cortez Hankton kind of coaching him up over the next couple of years, the sky's the limit for him. The physical tools that he has is second to none. He's long. He's hitting the weight room. I can't necessarily say strong just yet because that wouldn't be doing it fairly, but he's getting there, and the length that he has and the vertical that he has and pinpointing the ball at its highest point. I mean, the sky's the limit for him. I can't wait to see what happens with him and Cortez Hankton and see just how he can develop him over the next couple of months, years, and so on.
Yeah, and what really is exciting is thinking about what the twos are going to look like in a couple years when they're the ones. It really does seem like Brian Kelly is getting this into a reload, not rebuild type team, and I think that that's been a big problem with LSU over the years. Is they've built these just juggernaut teams, and they just weren't able to reload. Most of that's attrition. If you remember that 2019 team. They actually, they were supposed to bring back Jamar Chase, Terrace Marshall, Miles Brennan was about to be a 4th-year quarterback. The pieces were there. You just couldn't keep them there. That was very important because, next thing you know, you're shuffling around true freshman quarterbacks and, both those receivers that are, probably the best receiver duo in the country in 2020, they're gone. So keeping those guys in will be key for Brian Kelly moving forward. And I think that's why people are upset to hear this Denver Harris news, because he is highly talented. And just because he wasn't going to be a starter this year or isn't going to be a starter this year doesn't mean he couldn't contribute, develop, and build to the future. Dylan says, I'm stirring the pot. Look, hold up, man. I'm not stirring any pot. I felt like I was very careful. I mean, right? I was pretty careful with everything I said, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. We're just stating the facts, not in the team picture. Wasn't at practice today. And we'll see what happens on Wednesday. Stirring the pot. Let's not go down that.
Yeah, no, I've seen some reports out there that are pretty stirry the potty, okay, but I'm not doing any such thing, man. I'm telling you exactly what I know, and what I know is he was not at practice. He was not in the team photo. I do not know why. He was also in a scuffle about a week ago where his helmet came off. That's what I know. I also know he hasn't been in the starting role like we would expect. For the most part, that's been Deuce Chestnut and Zy Alexander. And then behind them, they're really high on LaTerrence Welch, and they're really high on Ashton Stamps, shockingly, who is a true freshman and not like a 5-star guy either, just a true freshman. But man, what stood out to me was Matt House talking about how he came to camp 3 times to get an offer at LSU.
Yep.
Meaning it took three tries of coming to LSU before he impressed him enough to get that offer. So he did not mince words. He likes him. Let's see here. What's good? What's good, Stephen Miller? Thanks for coming as always. Nicholas, remember that drinking gig, guys. Every time you hear the word Denver Harris, take a shot. We'll be passed out by the end of the show. I'm gonna lose my viewing. Let's see here. Have any of you guys seen back pylon fade routes to our bigger receivers from Daniels or Nuss, or do they do goal line situation in viewing portion? Okay, I'm gonna take that, and then I know you've got a lot to say on this for sure. I'm gonna just get mine out of the way. I 15-yard line type goal line, like red zone situation. I saw Jane Daniels throw the prettiest pass of the day to Malik Neighbors, where it was just tiptoe back corner pylon. That's not Jaden Daniels' throw, and we know it, and it was just beautiful. So he did that against Alabama. He did it on Saturday. Sometimes Jaden Daniels just decides, I'm going to put some arc on it, and it's going to be beautiful, and you're going to like it, even though I'm mostly an underneath passer. I don't know where it comes from, but it just looks beautiful sometimes. Nussmeier, most of his stuff has been like seam route. Like it's deep, but it's like he saw that there was a cover too. So once they slipped past the linebacker, he fit it, over the top of the safety that just couldn't make it there in time. What have you seen?
I've seen action on the 15-yard line and the 5-yard line. They've been kind of going in and out of that when they're in the red zone work. I've seen Jaden Davis connect with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas in the back corner for the most part. And I'm going to kind of go a little bit off topic here. The wide receivers have been doing great in the goal line fade, but tight end Kamorian Pimpton, I mean, that true freshman is an absolute monster. He's a goal line, red zone threat. I mean, he's so long. It's almost, and I don't want to say impossible, but it's so hard to contain him when he's going to the back corner of the end zone because he's so much bigger and stronger and just physically capable when it comes to these cornerbacks that he's going up against. I mean, his arms basically touch like his ankles. They're so long. It's just unbelievable. Mason Taylor was talking about his catch radius and talking about just how long his arms are when we were talking to him last Tuesday, or maybe it was Monday. And it was just, he's physically impressive for a freshman. Yeah. So when we're talking goal line fades, I'm looking at Kamorian Pimpton for the most part. But if we're talking receivers, I've seen a little bit of Malik Neighbors, a little bit of Brian Thomas Jr. work in that aspect. And that's more of Jaden Daniels, not as much Garrett Nussmeier.
Now, he's listed at 6'7", I believe. Hold on. I'm double-checking myself because I don't want to give, fake news up in here.
I think 6'6", 225 is around where he's at.
6'6", 242. Okay. All right. So do you believe it? Is that a fudged number, or does he look it?
He's every inch, every piece of weight, everything about it. I mean, that is as physically impressive of a freshman as it gets. Him and Lance Hurd have been just impressive.
I concur 100% on him. And, the thing that about Kamorian Pimpton that I was expecting was that he would be an elite receiver, because look at his film, man. Yeah. It's like, geez, of course he's impressed as a blocker, which is important if you want to get on the field. Because, I mean, quite frankly, most of your 2 tight end sets are going to be play action pass and running plays. So if you want to get on the field as a true freshman, you have to be able to block. They've been very impressed with his ability to block. I thought Jackson McGowan was going to be a little bit better than that. And really, Jackson McGowan, it's been frustrating in the passing game. You mentioned he had a drop today. On Saturday, he had a drop that was really bad. It was in the middle of the field, hit him in the numbers, and he dropped it. He's a true freshman, right? So of course these are just the kind of mistakes you expect, but it seems like this loaded tight end room, he might be getting buried, because we haven't even talked about Matt Markway. But yeah, if you had to depth out your tight ends, what are you thinking right now for your tight end depth chart?
It's really difficult because they just bring so many different skill sets. Obviously Mason Taylor's a different beast, and that's your tight end 1 for the most part. But when you're looking at your second guy, it's hard to not look at, Mac Markway and Kamorian Pimpton as like a 2A, 2B type of option.
Really?
I mean, I still need to see Pimpton improve as a blocker, but as a receiver, it's unbelievable. Markway's your blocker.
He's a better blocker than Pimpton is right now.
And it's not even close. It's very impressive what he's doing. Connor Gilbreth, the JUCO tight end that you brought in, he's a blocker, and he's not really going to catch the ball at all. He's going to be a guy that they transition to an offensive tackle type role
eventually
next year. So Jackson McGowan might be at the bottom right now, but I'd have to go, Taylor, and then you have Kamorian Pimpton and Mac Markway 2A, 2B. Gilbreth, and then McGowan for the most part. If that's what that's really what I'm looking at my tight end depth chart.
Which, by the way, Mac Markway is 6'4", but he's 250, so he's definitely got more in his rear end than Kamora and Pimpton does. Yeah, he's a hoss, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
I was getting the impression that Kamora and Pimpton was running away with it because of his skills, because the blocking was the suspect part coming in, and we've heard coaches talk about that. But it might be a 2A, 2B situation. Regardless, you're in a much better situation at tight end than you were a year ago. It's night and day. Chance Babin asks, can he be Kyle Pitts one day? He can be one day, but not day one, is what I would say. If you verse those last two, it'd be a little egregious to put him out there, right?
It's well said. I couldn't agree with that even more. I mean, the sky's the limit for him. There's no ceiling on what Kamora and Pimpton can do as a tight end for this program.
Higher ceiling, Kamora and Pimpton or Mason Taylor?
Wow, Kamora and Pimpton. I mean, just the physical tools that he attains is just tremendous. It's tough though, because you could see Mason Taylor be an All-American type of tight end this season. So it's really tough. Pimpton's too young for me to even put that type of expectations and anything on his shoulders right now. I'm going to have to ride with Mason Taylor, for the long haul, but I don't want to contradict myself and do anything of that nature, but it's tough. That's a tough question.
Last thing I'm going to throw you about practice, and then we're going to kind of transition a little bit, talk a little bit of recruiting. We had some recruiting news today. We'll call it news. But defense. Have you gotten a good chance to look at them as a full unit play? Because that's what I keep on getting frustrated at, is we haven't seen 11-on-11 scrimmages for the most part. It's been mostly 7-on-7, no defensive line. I have a theory that this defensive line is the strength of this team. And without that defensive line, the rest of the defense just isn't going to work, because you've got a ton of talented pass rushers, run stuffers who are really going to impact the game in a big way. And I think the DBs, if you just put them out there on an island for 5 seconds, they're going to struggle. I think they're the weakest unit on the team. That's not an insult, because I think the team's pretty stacked this year. I just think you need that defensive line. Have you gotten to see the defensive line, like the defense play as a unit yet?
I have, and it's a strong point of this team, and it's really not even close. I mean, Mason Smith has looked absolutely phenomenal. Obviously went down with that, minor knee injury, but other than that, I mean, he's been looking exceptionally well. Him and Mekhi Wingo are going to be a force to be reckoned with inside, because you really can't double team either one, because the other one will just eat the entire day. So defensive line has been absolutely impressive. Savion Jones is a player who's going to break out this year, and he's ready for it. I mean, he's up to 280 pounds, and he's looked the part. So defensive line wise, I mean, you have so much talent in that regard. Quincy Wiggins is going to be somebody who can give you some immediate, an immediate impact type of role coming in off the sideline with the twos. So that is going to be one of your greatest strengths. And if it can, pan out as it should, it's going to be tough for opposing offenses. I'll tell you that much.
Man, I was surprised to see Savion Jones listed as heavy as 280. Yeah. Getting to see him up close. I didn't really get like one of those really close-up looks of Savion Jones. 280 is legit?
280 is legit. He's a beast. He looks the part.
Yeah, I think he's due for a huge breakout year. I think he's the guy who's really going to come on strong. I remember Mike Scarborough filmed him in high school. Mike Scarborough actually had him as the number 1 player in the state above Mason Smith. And I wasn't going about that madness, because I thought Mason Smith was an absolute monster, but I did recognize what Mike was saying, that he's a very good player, and I think he is due for a breakout season. Mason Smith had some sort of just tweak of his leg, ankle, something. I saw him walking on the sideline. I actually missed the injury on Saturday. So did he look like he was 100% this morning?
I wouldn't say 100% because he wasn't really participating in that many drills. He was out on the side doing bike work for the most part, getting his legs back underneath him. So I can't say 100%, but I don't think it's something that we're going to have to worry about in the slightest.
Did you notice which leg it was? Was it the hurt one?
I didn't. I wish I could tell you.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to definitely keep an eye out to see if it's the ACL leg, or if it's just the other leg. If it's the other leg, then we can just rely on, okay, he rolled his ankle, and they're just being careful. But that's a guy, hey, look, don't push him. I mean, he doesn't really need the reps. We know he's a freak. Yes, he needs to get some game action, get fresh. Yes, Matt House did say he's a little bit rusty, but I think he'll be all right. You'd rather him healthy than, have a lingering issue that's going to hurt him come fall. With that being said, I do have to thank our sponsors once more. Of course, we couldn't do anything without Alumni Hall, who is one of our grateful sponsor fans. Tiger fans, when you want to show your LSU Tiger pride, Alumni Hall is your ultimate shopping experience. The best and largest selection of apparel for the whole family. Nike, Nike Golf, Champion, Columbia, Peter Millar, Southern Tide, hats, Yeti gifts, accessories, anything you're looking for, guys. I'm not kidding. It is the craziest LSU shop I've ever been to. It's like Willy Wonka's Wonderland for an LSU fan. Y'all go check them out in Perkins Row. LSU students and faculty and military get 10% off in store every single day. You can earn cashback rewards with their Hall Pass Rewards program. Alumni Hall, located in Perkins Row, or anytime at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Tiger fans shop. And of course, we're also brought to you by Celebrity Theaters, our title sponsor for the 2023 season. Their weekly promotions for all locations include Monday, Senior Savings Day, $5 for all patrons over 55. Tuesday, Bargain Tuesday, discounted movie tickets for concessions for all. Wednesdays, College Night, so admission for college students after 5 p.m. is $5. Baton Rouge location also has half off arcades all day on Wednesday. And Thursday at the Baton Rouge location only, Thirsty Thursday, because they have the bar at the Baton Rouge location. So y'all make sure to go check out Celebrity Theaters. And if they ask, tell them Tigerbait sent you by. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit of recruiting here. We're not going to dive too deep in because LSU didn't get a guy today. But
yeah,
we were teasing last week that LSU might go 10 for 10 in-state. Of course, Wardell Mack committed to Florida today. He is the corner out of New Orleans. After you got Kai Bates committed in this class, it wasn't considered a massive loss to lose that guy. I think it's just one of those things you really always want to keep a talented in-state guy like that home, because you never know. These guys tend to produce better at LSU, and you never want to see a guy from your home state come back and beat you like Devonta Smith. Even though Devonta Smith wasn't too highly recruited by LSU, it's still burned to see him go. You don't want to see a guy like that go. What's your opinion? Is that a big loss for LSU? How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, they were recruiting him as a safety for the most part, and it's I wouldn't say it's a big loss just given how talented this defensive back class is about to be in 2024. Mm-hmm. You have a ton of talent coming in, so significant loss. No, would have been nice to have an extra super gifted body, absolutely, and it's not over yet. I mean, you go all the way until December for the early signing period. So it's not like the buzzer sounded yet. Will LSU keep its foot on the gas for him? Maybe, maybe not, but it's not necessarily over just yet. But for now, I wouldn't necessarily say it's that big of a loss.
What I'm reading into this Wardell Mack situation is a week ago, I would have told you Texas was the front runner to land him, but LSU's there, and I could see LSU break through and get him, but Texas was still the front runner. What really surprised me is Florida is the place he ends up at. I mean, Corey Raymond, I guess, man. Yeah. Hey, your alma mater's head coach, Billy Napier, doing work, huh?
My guy.
Yeah, that's your guy, huh? Did you ever like cover Billy Napier?
I did.
Oh, really? How was that? Is he a good guy?
He's a great guy. He's a great person. So he was just an absolute class act. It wasn't very nice to see him go, obviously, to a school like Florida, but he did what's best for him, and it was a pleasure getting to cover him. He's a great person.
How many L's are in ULL?
You told me two. I gotta say two.
On this show, the correct answer was on this show 2. Mm-hmm. Or you could just count 7 for how many losses they had last year. Either answer is acceptable here, but no, I
left and the magic was gone. I was there during the glory days. I can say that now.
Hey, maybe you were the magic piece they needed. You left, Napier left shortly afterward, right? Don't check my timeline. I don't know which actually happened first, but you left and he left, and then it all fell apart, right?
You said it, not me.
It's funny. No, I like to tease ULL people. My father-in-law had a radio show in Lafayette for many years and had to cater. So when I went on his show, it was you say UL. Mm-hmm. So yes, sir, UL it is. So now it's my show and we're saying UL out because that's what I want to do. But speaking of father-in-law, Wardell Mack not going to Texas is interesting to me because it makes me wonder if maybe they used up a lot of their, how shall we say, capital to go after Colin Simmons and resources, attention, effort, things we can't name on this show.
Yep.
You know, if they just used a lot of that up for Colin Simmons and he felt like, well, you know, if all the love's going to Colin, you know, I can go somewhere else, actually. Dominic McKinley is who all the eyes in the state are going on now because he's the number one player in the state. He's a 5-star defensive tackle. I don't think he's quite as good of a defensive lineman as Colin Simmons because, look, I'm not one of those guys who's going to tell you, well, he went somewhere else, so he wasn't that good anyways. Like, no, Colin Simmons is a freak, y'all. He's the best pass rusher in the country. But Dominic McKinley is a guy you definitely want from Acadiana High School, Mr. Bitter's alma mater. Mr. Bitter's my father-in-law I was telling y'all about. And I'm really looking forward to try to see if I can talk to Dominic McKinley soon. I'm gonna try to make that happen as soon as possible, hopefully on this show, but we'll see. But I heard some whispers. Just understand I have a lot of ears around that campus, but the problem is that those ears are only hearing what the kid says, and he does play it really close to the vest. And I heard that he might not be as interested in Texas as he was before Colin Simmons signed, which Texas was where all the buzz was going to. From what I'm hearing, it's looking like a Georgia, LSU, Ohio State battle. He's also said he wants to be different, whatever that means as a recruit. Who knows? Sometimes kids say stuff and it doesn't mean anything. And I do know he speaks of the Ohio State defensive line coach very highly.
Yep.
Emphasis on very highly. And having a good defensive line coach is important to him. And I do wonder if Coach Lindsey's status right now, where he's unable to be actively recruiting, could be hurting LSU. He's got till September 1st to make a call on that. But we'll see. I would say that update that I heard makes me a little more hopeful that Texas doesn't seem to be as strong in that. Of course, guys, just understand everything I'm saying. We're talking about the words of teenage kids, you know, and a lot of times these whispers go secondhand and the coaches can't even tell. I can tell you as I'm on the phone with his coach a lot, and he says he's tough to read. He's tough to read. And this guy is straight up told. LaTerrence Welsh, I knew like within 10 seconds that guy's going to LSU. It's one of those things you can't really say at the time, but, you know, I remember joking with him. I was like, do you have any LSU gear on your wall? He said, all 4 walls around me. I was like, all right, okay, I see where this is going.
Set the tone.
Yeah. So do you have any gut feelings on McKinley? What do you think?
I think it's tough. I think it was extremely important to get him on campus for Bayou Splash that last weekend of July. I mean, I feel like LSU was playing catch up in the worst way leading up to that point. So to get him and his family, especially his brother who walked away with an offer that day, it's tremendous and puts this program in, you know, not in the driver's seat at all, but it gives them a chance to compete on the recruiting trail for him. So I'm really intrigued to see what LSU does here. I think Ohio State is slowly creeping up as a team to beat here. Like you were saying, like I can kind of try to double down on that. But
yeah,
it's going to be interesting come September 1st. There's not that much time, but at the same time, there is, you know, some time to make an impact over the next couple of, you know, days, weeks. So we'll see what happens. But I think LSU's playing catch up in a little bit of a way right now.
You know, it's funny you say there's not much time, and 5 years ago, I would have said his mind's made up, man. This is over. But even with Colin Simmons, we see how fast this go. In this era of recruiting in the last 24 hours, coaches work miracles. I'm telling you, it ain't over till it's over in this era because coaches have more weapons at their arsenal than they've ever had in recruiting. So I'm just telling you, LSU can cover a lot of ground almost immediately. So can anybody. So can anybody. As long as they're from, you do have to be familiar with the recruit. I'm not saying like some Nebraska or somebody could come in and swoop in and sweep them off his feet. The player still has to be. Traditional recruiting still matters, y'all. You still have, but it's just the recruits get to the point where it's like they've been to their top 3 or 4 or 5 schools so much that any one of these schools they'd be fine with, and one thing can tip the scale.
Well, you and I were kind of talking about that last week with TigerBait. You know, it was kind of like LSU, Tennessee. What was it going to be? And then right at the buzzer, LSU came in and swooped them away. So it can happen. I mean, you and I were hitting on that a little bit last week. So who knows what can happen over, you know, a 2.5 week span. So yeah, I completely agree with that 1,000%.
For 2025, though, you might want to keep an eye out. I'm hearing good things. Buckle up. First off, 2025 is off to an excellent start. We saw Decorian Moore, the other guy from D-ville. What's the name of Duncanville? Yeah. You're going to learn real fast, Zach. I struggle to like recall names. I know the names, okay, but sometimes I just have a dumb moment. I'm like, who's LSU's quarterback? Jaden Daniels. That's right. I struggle. I just look. I'm getting old. I played football for 10 years, so basically I'm like 83 in the brain. Y'all cut me a break. But anyways, Duncanville. LSU got the 5-star receiver, best receiver for the class of 2025. Keep an eye out for Devin Harper and Terry Busey in Texas for the 2025 guys. I could see something. I could see something going on there pretty soon. Let's see here. I'm gonna get to some questions. That's kind of the big recruiting news. I'm not going to sit here and bore y'all with everything. If you want a more in-depth recruiting news, y'all can always subscribe to TigerBait.com. It is $1 to give it a try. Let's get to some questions here before we move into our final segment. Our final segment, I thought we would do a little bit of an offensive breakdown, even though it's a little redundant with practice report. Let's just go position group by position group and get Zack Nagy to tell you how he feels, because he's the end-all, be-all, know-all. Preston, what do you and TigerBait plan on doing to regain y'all's throne since it was taken by... I don't know what he's talking about. Must be talking about Mike and Buddy. First off, I'm not trying to touch Mike and Buddy's show, y'all. They have a juggernaut going over there. That is a great show. I think Zack would agree that we're just going to try to be the best version of our show that we can be.
I'm here now. We're gonna I'm here now. We're gonna
dominate now that Zach's here and he can keep me in line. Oh yeah. No, I really do think one of the things with this show is I have needed a good co-host to come in and kind of help, keep my mind straight, to bounce off of for moments where I'm like, the Duncanville thing just now. Just keep me organized so I can kind of run the show, push the buttons. I kind of want to do some different things too moving forward, maybe incorporate some video. It's very difficult to press the buttons and, run all the talking. So it is nice. So I do think we're going to elevate the show and get a lot better. I think moving to Monday night's going to help us with views because there's less competition in this slot. But like I said, I'm not competing with Mike and Buddy, dude. Those guys are so good. They've been doing it for a combined 60 years. They've been covering LSU. I mean, I'm just going to be the best version of myself, guys. I'm not out here trying to be the best LSU football show or anything. I don't need no throne. Let's see here. Any comments here? Man, we got some Florida State trolls then already. These guys are ready to cook. Oh, someone made a good comment about Florida State earlier, and I wanted to talk to you about this. Let's see. Something about ESPN rated their talent. I'm going to see if I can fold it. Here we go. Brian Turner. FPI, that's the Football Power Index from ESPN, which is just like a computerized system, ranked LSU as the third best roster in the FBS. Florida State was 18th. Will talent be a big difference in this game or coaching? Do you think Florida State staff can out-coach LSU? You first, sir.
That's a great question. I mean, I think it ultimately comes down to the returning talent that LSU has. I mean, you have 10 players coming back on offense who are going to shine in that regard. Third best roster in the FBS that's really interesting to me. I didn't think it would be that high considering there's so many newcomers on defense. But yeah, I didn't see that myself. So that's a really interesting question. Will it be talent or coaching? I think talent wins games, but when you have like a CEO type figure like Brian Kelly at the helm, he's going to do what he can with the talent that he has. So that's a great question. What do you got, Preston?
All right. I'm going to address the 3rd versus 18th because the 3rd sort of surprises me, but I could see I'm sure a lot of this is like recruiting rankings type ordeal plus returning experience. It's a computer, right? So obviously there's like Denver Harris was 5-star guy, and he's going to give LSU a lot of points in the system. Jaden Daniels, 5th-year guy coming back. The 8 running backs. It doesn't surprise me that LSU on paper is one of the most talented rosters. Florida State being 18th, that legitimately shocks me. Like not surprised. Like I'm flabbergasted to
crushed
see
the transfer portal too. Like the additions that they made are crazy. 18 is baffling. That's crazy.
And you got the quarterback Jordan Travis coming back, who is one of the quarterbacks who's actually people are higher on than Jaden Daniels. You've got Johnny Wilson, the receiver. I believe Johnny Wilson was at Arizona State with Jaden Daniels, if I'm not mistaken. He's a monster. Johnny Wilson is. And then you've got the defensive lineman, Gerard Curse. I know his name's Curse, but I can't remember his first name, but he's like the best defensive lineman in the country. So that I know that much about the roster, and I do remember some players here and there from last year. I don't know they're 1 through 22 on both sides of the ball. So that to me tells me that, that has to mean that they're a top-heavy roster, right? If that's what the computers are telling you, that's all it could be, right?
Yeah, that's shocking to me. The only player that I'm looking at on that roster that is just an absolute crazy game changer is going to be Jared Verse. Other than that, they have some severe talent on that roster. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with all season long. That's why 18 to me is kind of surprising. Jared Verse is the headliner, but the rest of the guys that they have as well, a bunch of different playmakers on offense. They added Keon Coleman as well. So, they have some dudes. So, yeah, 18 shocking to me.
18 is shocking to me. Let's put it like this. I get that the computers might have said that, but that's why we scrapped the BCS, y'all. That's a top 10 roster minimum. Personally, Brian, if you're making me pick the talent or coaching, I think the talent is about as close as you're going to get. Like I computer ranking be damned. I think this is about the closest 2 talent teams that you're going to see in the country. And I think this one's really going to come down to coaching. And I don't think this is going to be a sloppy game where Florida State fumbles on the 1, LSU muffs 2 punts, they miss 2 extra points, or 2 extra points get blocked. I think both of these teams are going to look mid-season form because of how much continuity they have coming back from last year. I think I got a super chat. Let's see. Super chat. Here we go. Right. Let's see if I can put it on. So here we go. Riley Hardigo. What's going on, man? This is my old teammate from high school. Let's say we're in a nickel on 3rd down. Give me the 11 guys you were thinking on the field, game 1 for Florida State, which, by the way, a nickel's probably going to be most of the game, right? All right. We said offensive preview. Oh, boy. He's going for he paid his super chat, so we're gonna go do it.
Pulling out the depth chart, I see you.
Yeah, I was say I need a roster for all this. Corner, Deuce and Zai, and then and then Nickelback.
Sage Ryan.
Sage Ryan is the Nickelback. Really?
I would think so.
Interesting. I was thinking about Ashton Stamps, but Sage Ryan did practice at nickel a good bit now that I'm recalling.
Yeah.
All right, safety. Well, is Greg Brooks, is he good to go? How was he this morning?
He's still coming back. Vertigo is what he's dealing with right now. Apparently he's coming back tomorrow, at full strength. So for right now, I'd probably just put Major Burns and Andre Sam, but Greg Brooks is going to be your guy.
That's what I was going to say. Andre Sam looks the part.
He looks like an SEC guy. He's been very impressive. So, 1A, 1B when it's Andre Sam or Greg Brooks, one of those 2 guys.
Which, by the way, coming out of spring, the thought was it was going to be Taviano as that next up safety. But I think Andre Sam it's not an issue of Taviano being bad either. It's Andre Sam has impressed that much.
Taviano's a Swiss Army knife. He can go anywhere in that secondary. Wherever you need him, he can go. Cornerback, nickel safety, you name it, he's there.
So you get 2 linebackers in this formation. So it's Omar Spates and Harold Perkins, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Okay. And then your 4 defensive linemen, Mason Smith, Mekhi Wingo, Savion Jones, and
Probably Ovi Ogufo on the other
Ovi.
side.
That's what I say. Ovi Agufo
Mhm.
was probably next up.
I
Yep.
probably butchered the how to say his last name.
All right.
But
So I thought it was Ovi Agofu. That's what
let's
I've
go
been
with the
saying.
Gofu then, because it's so I get so lost.
All right. Hope that was worth you $5, Riley. Appreciate you for supporting the show. All right. We're going to hit some sponsors up, and then we're going to do a bit of an offensive preview. But guys, get your comments out. We're going to address your comments. It's kind of a free form. It wasn't as busy of a news week as it was last week with all the 5-star guys come in and all that good stuff. So a little bit of a free form show. Let's see here. What time is it? It is 8:44. So we got about 16 minutes left in the show. So we'll probably have about 14 by the time we get back. But first, I have to thank Jordan Spector of Spector Sports Art. Guys, y'all see the Smokin' Joe behind me. Quality art every time at Spector Sports Art. I'm going to share my screen here and show y'all what he's got new here. Let's see here. Share. Okay. As you can see, he's got a nice Bayou collection. The link to all these are in the description of this video, but the new one he's got is the Dylan Cruz 7. This is an outstanding artwork that celebrates LSU's 7th national title. The attention to detail is second to none. You get the golden spikes, you get the trophy, the fireworks from the championship celebration, the cigar he smoked, which is now like an LSU champ tradition. You win a championship, you smoke a cigar. That's a tradition. I mean, that's the best tradition in sports, bar none, if you ask me. Win a championship, smoke a cigar. And of course, my favorite part, this was my idea, by the way. I told him when he was making this, see the puzzle piece on his wristband? That's an homage to the Cruz crew. He actually helps disabled and kids with special needs come see the games. He was like buying their tickets to come to the game, meeting them and all that good work. I know some kids in the Cruz crew, so it was outstanding work. Dylan Cruz, actually, by the way, here's the picture. Dylan Cruz bought the original. It's hanging in his house. So you can buy the same artwork that Dylan Cruz himself has hanging in his house there. And Dylan Cruz gave the puzzle piece a shout out. So I thought that was particularly cool. Of course, you see the Joe Burrow behind me. I've got the Perfection. By the way, just shout out. I came up with the name on this one. Perfection Joe Burrow, Coach O. I don't care what you say. I know he got fired. I still love Coach O. He's the best. But y'all see the attention to detail on all his pieces. Y'all go to check out the link in the description of this video. Go check it out and use the promo code TigerBait10. You'll get 10% off of all your purchases. These works start at $50, so you can put it in your room affordably. But of course, he's got all sorts of shapes, sizes, canvas, printouts, all the good stuff. Y'all make sure to go check out one of the 5 pieces, Smokin' Joe, Tiger Stadium, Perfection, Dylan Cruz 7, or even for the Saints fans in here, Drew Brees, the Saint. Our show is also presented by Celebrity Theaters, our title sponsor this year. All Celebrity Theaters locations house 8 to 10 auditoriums. Whether you're interested in hosting a birthday party, private movie screening, corporate meeting, arcade party, we have the perfect facility to meet your needs. Celebrity Theaters is proud to offer birthday packages for children of all ages. Let us handle everything from movies, entertainment, setup, cleanup, anything. For more information on these events, you can visit celebritytheaters.com/event. If you're looking for that affordable event for your next school fundraiser, you have to come check out Celebrity Theaters. To get set up, send them an email, events@celebritytheaters.com. All right, now the bills have been paid. No more sponsors. We get to just talk offense and football and your comments. Let's see if we have any interesting comments to get to before we move on. And we will see. Let's see here. Contain Johnny Wilson for Florida State. Yeah, that's going to be huge. And honestly, a matchup nightmare. You know how you contain Johnny Wilson? I think put some pressure on that quarterback, because we've seen in camp these DBs are not 5-second DBs. I think the DBs are the plan is next week we're going to do a real deep dive on defense, but y'all know how these news cycles work. Sometimes we don't do it, but I do think the DBs are going to be probably above average in the SEC, but not a top-notch unit. Do you kind of agree? Like, what's been your overall impression?
I agree. I mean, they're just going to be super thin. I mean, one injury and you're going to 1 or 2 injuries, you're going to be in a pretty tough spot. So, yeah, above average is that's safe to say.
Brett Alelo, friend of the show, who's here. No need to bring up the other shows. Show some respect for these guys actually doing the work. Hold up, Mike and Buddy do the work now. I'm not. It's not about bashing them. Let's see here. Andre Sam, Iowa High product. Let's go. Iowa High School, man. What you know about Iowa High School?
Not enough.
I mean, neither. I've never been to a game, never covered them, never nothing. Let's see here. Riley says totally worth the $5. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you for supporting our efforts, man. We do a lot of hard work to make this show possible for y'all. Let's see here. A lot of people saying that Denver Harris might be suspended. Neither me nor you are confirming that, though. Nope. I don't have any information to confirm that.
Not confirming that, and I'm looking at this chat blowing up about it too.
Yeah, no, someone's saying it was not first reported by TigerBait. Unless like Mike Scarborough put something out while I was on air and I haven't sent it. So if Mike Scarborough puts something out, someone text me the link. I know someone has my number or Twitter DM. I haven't seen anything like that.
Well, I think Mike says, I'll agree with that, but neither of us said anything.
When Mike Scarborough says it, I'm with it. That's a trusted source, no doubt. But I haven't seen it from a trusted source. I've seen some untrusted sources, but yeah, look, here's Big Conus Kelly, best name on the LSU internet. He is not been officially confirmed. There you go. So stop trolling us. TigerBait reported no such thing, y'all. Let's see here. If it was one of the drills, we can't handle Wilson, but in the game situation, I'm hoping this is exactly what I was saying is I do think this defense, when it comes together as a unit, will be better. Preston and Zack touched on it a bit, but nothing. I love that the community is like getting our back now and like doing live fact checking for us.
Steven's always got our back. I'm starting to see.
Yeah, man. Steven's a good guy, man. Mm-hmm. Great guy, man. Hal Jubin. See, no media member has. Exactly. See, no legit media members has. Y'all do have to understand and let me pick my words carefully here because I support fans going out and making a show and stuff like that. But sometimes it's confusing as a fan who's just trying to follow and get legitimate information. Anybody can start a Twitter account or YouTube account nowadays and put information out there. And, they'll have thousands of followers and you might think they're legit. I'm just saying, just be careful when it comes to information like this. If you're seeing it from someone like that, and you're not seeing it from The Advocate, 247, Sports Illustrated, TigerBait, there's just certain sources that are more, they have a higher criteria of what they'll put out there or not. Where is Mike tonight? I don't know where Mike is tonight. He was teasing me pregame. He wanted me and my son were doing in our lobby creating the show and he was poking on me, so he was home for that, but I don't know. Maybe Mike is on the road confirming the news of the Denver.
Mike's tuned in right now listening to us.
He's not. He would have commented by now. He would have commented by now. As many times as we've dropped his name,
he would have said something.
Yeah, he's like that episode of South Park, Biggie Smalls, where you say his name 3 times and he shows up, right? Man, you don't watch South Park, do you?
I do.
Oh, we found something that you're interested in outside of sport.
My roommates in college made me watch it for the most part, but it wasn't by choice.
I joked with him this year, guys. He now this is his. I'm not bullying you here. I promise. Your words, not mine. You don't have a hobby outside of football, outside of sports.
Just work.
And sports. That is the hobby. Which, in all fairness, it's kind of cool for us. It's a job and a hobby. But you said you don't have one. So I want to find a hobby for you by the end of this season. By the end of this show.
You texted me after last show and you were like, we need to find you one by January or something. I was like,
that's my goal. By the time this show ends, it should end whatever signing day in February is. That's our last show. All right.
Got you.
I'm gonna find you one. I don't know if it's gonna be like Lord of the Rings,
I'll take your
video
word for it.
games, Star Wars. We're gonna find you something, man. But anyways, maybe the chat can get in there. Yeah, see, he knows. Mike trolls with a flex. Yeah, he does this. This is the signature trait of a Mike Scarborough. Where's it at? If you ever see that,
that's awesome.
We've been Mike bombed. It's like his Rickroll. Okay, a few minutes left. We're gonna go look at the offense real quick. Offensive positions. Let's start with running back. Running back is a deep room. We have 8 running backs vying for carries, and I'm going to name them real quick. Logan Diggs, John Emery, Noah Kane, Armani Goodwin, Trey Holly, Caleb Jackson, Josh Williams, Trey Bradford. Zach, what's your prognosis of that position? How do you evaluate they're doing on there?
It's tough. I mean, Logan Diggs is somebody who's just so versatile. It's going to be hard to not keep him off the field. I mean, he's a guy who has to be there, 3-down back. He can do whatever you need. He can catch it out the backfield. He can run routes. He can do a wheel route for you. He's powerful. He's strong. He's put on a ton of size. His lower body strength is superb. Just everything about him is something that points to a starter. But I mean, you can't not look at Josh Williams and say, he's capable of, impressing Brian Kelly. He's the veteran. He's a leader in the locker room. What did Mike say? Did Mike text you and say something? Never mind. So you have your guys. I mean, Logan Diggs is somebody. It's going to be hard to keep him off the field. But him and Josh Williams are kind of be your 1A, 1B once again. So that's my running back situation right there for the most part. It's just so much depth. It's hard to even pinpoint 2. But if I was to do that, it's those 2.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for breaking character a little bit there. I was checking my phone because it was blowing up, and I said if anybody saw any official Denver Harris news, let me know. So I was checking for that, and somebody sent me just something so funny about the way the quote news came out. I just had to chuckle. But anyways, running back. Okay, I think the depth is the big key here, and I think with a Brian Kelly system, it's less important to have that top end guy, more important to have just sheer volume of guys. So 4 is the magic number historically, Brian Kelly. If you have to cut it off, who's your 4 that you think are going to get those 40 carries or more this year?
Logan Diggs, Josh Williams, Noah Kane, and probably Armani Goodwin if all can go right. I'd love to see a youngster like Caleb Jackson or Trey Holly get in the fold, but I'm just not sure it's in the cards for this year. Maybe towards the back end of the year, Caleb Jackson can do something. But if I'm going to pick 4, it's going to be Logan Diggs, Josh Williams, Noah Kane, and Armani Goodwin.
Logan Diggs, Josh Williams, Armani Goodwin, and Noah Kane.
Mm-hmm. Noah Kane got a ton of first-team run today, and he's looked the part. We got to talk to him last week as well, or earlier this week actually, and he's just an impressive guy.
Josh Williams is too reliable to keep off the field. Noah Kane is a guy they like a lot. Did you said John Emery and Logan Diggs?
I didn't say
John Emery. Goodwin.
Which, it's tough because maybe I should have said John Emery instead of Armani Goodwin because he's been getting significant first team run as well. So it's tough to pick 4, man. This group is deep and it's talented and it's all different skill sets.
That sentence right there is all you need to know about the running back room, how good a position it's in. It is tough to pick just 4. They had 4 running backs on roster last year, guys, period. And now we can't even pick which 4. I tend to think this will be the year where he has so much depth, they have to rotate even more. All of these guys are reliable as can be. I'd say with the exception of John Emery, his fumble issues and stuff, but he looks talented, man. He is showing his 5-star talent out there thus far. It's just about if he puts that ball on the turf at all, he's going to be on a short leash just because of how many other guys are capable of doing that. Offensive line, your starting 5 will be. You want to go through the starting 5 for me?
Sure. And I'll go left to right, starting with left tackle Will Campbell, Garrett Dellinger, Charles Turner, and Marlon Martinez are battling for starting duties right? But I think Charles Turner will get that spot. Going to the right guard position, that's become a battle now. It was Miles Frazier for a while, and now Mason Lunsford, the Maryland transfer, has really inserted himself as a guy who can be a starter. And then Emory Jones to seal it off. So you have 5, 6, 7 capable guys, but if I'm picking 5, it's going to be Campbell, Dellinger, Turner, Lunsford, and Emory Jones.
Which is a very quality starting 5, no doubt about it. And I think it'll be a greatly improved unit from especially the beginning of last year. It'll be greatly improved. Let's talk about the second teamers because, again, guys, y'all know how much I love depth. Lance Hurd, we can't say enough about him. How about Kimo Makanele? I mean, he's a solid guy. Mm-hmm. Bo Bordelon is another guy who coaches are really high on for that second. He's practicing at second team left tackle, if I'm not mistaken.
He is, but he's extremely versatile. You can move him all over if you really need to, and it's something that this program is going to rely on for the future. But he's been super impressive through camp.
And just think about this. The other two positions are those two position battles you were telling about. Marlon Martinez, who's arguably your best center, might be on your second team, right? And we saw what he did for the bowl game. He's definitely capable. And then you've got Mason Lunsford and Miles Frazier battling out. Mason Lunsford was an all-conference guy at Maryland.
Yes.
Like, we're talking about a Power 5 fifth-year senior veteran who's like fighting tooth and nail for a starting spot. Do y'all know like how good that is when you have good football players not starting? That is a good sign for your football team.
Lunsford is a dude. He is a menace. He's ginormous. So you put him at right guard, you're in a great spot in that position. So offensive line is not something that I'm too worried about. There's depth and there's a lot of talent in that area for the most part.
6'7", 300 pounds. Yeah, he's a dude and a half is what he is, man. So I think we're of the consensus. Running back way up from last year. Offensive line way up from last year, right? Like not small upgrades, big upgrades.
And experience as well. Like you went with two freshmen last year, and Will Campbell and Emory Jones. And
they
have a year under their belt battling it out in the SEC, and Will Campbell's taking on a little bit of a leadership role of his own in the locker room. So experience is something that's also going to be key with this group.
Tight end. Mason Taylor back, second best tight end in the conference. Yep. It's probably second best tight end in the country, actually, behind who's the Georgia guy? Brock Bowers, right? Yeah, look, there's a large gap, okay? But Mason Taylor's a guy who, he's a sophomore. Maybe next year, not this year, but next year, we might be talking about him being up for the Mackey Award. I just think Brock Bowers would have to get hurt not to win that award. If he has anything close to 1,000-yard season, just on name recognition alone, he's going to win it. But Mason Taylor's now a guy, he has that viral moment from last year where he beat Alabama. He's got the NFL pedigree. Jason Taylor, his dad's a Hall of Famer in the NFL. He's a guy who's going to get a lot of recognition next year. And I think he's going to be one of the better. He's a complete tight end. He's a guy who can block. He's a guy who can catch. He's very reliable. So not much to be said on him, right? I mean, just really good. Correct. The depth. Kamorian Pimpton, Mac Markway, Jackson McGowan, Connor Gilbreth. That's 4 tight ends. They literally did not trust Cole Taylor on the field last year. Yep. They had Mashburn come in blocking situations because they didn't like Cole Taylor as a blocker. So they had one tight end they trusted. Give me your thoughts on the tight end room.
I mean, when Brian Kelly took over the job and came to Baton Rouge, that was just an area of just complete concern. And fast forward to, year 2 in Baton Rouge, and he's just completely regrouped the entire spot. They're deep, they're talented, they're versatile. There's a bunch of different skill sets. So, if we're going to sit here and, talk about a tight end 2, your backup, it's tough to not put Kamorian Pimpton as well as Mac Markway there as well. And, Connor Gilbreth is just an excellent blocker. So he came to campus for a reason. He's a guy who could have gone back to JUCO if he wanted to. Like he had options. He had a ton of other schools, in his ear as well. So to trust Mike Denbrock and come to Baton Rouge was tremendous. So you have talent, and that's a battle that I'm really intrigued to see what unfolds at that tight end 2 spot.
I think Connor Gilbreth is an elite blocker. And of course, we talked about the plan is to transition him to offensive tackle, right? And he's a guy they brought in thinking that there might be a situation where they just bring in a big blocking tight end. You might not need that as good as Macway and Pimpton all have been as blockers, right? So the fact that you have situational guys like that who the situation might not arise in an offense designed for that situation to arise speaks volumes. Tight end's a position where you have to say it's greatly improved from last year as well, right?
Without a doubt, 100%. The depth there is tremendous. Mason Taylor has experience under his belt now. That group's unbelievable. I'm intrigued to see what happens with that spot for the season.
Last position group is quarterback, and I think LSU has a really good argument that it might have the best quarterback room in the country. It's not to say Jaden Daniels is I mean, obviously the best quarterback in the country is Caleb Williams. We know about Michael Penix at Washington. Bo Nix at Oregon is shockingly a good player all of a sudden. And, Jordan Travis at Florida State. But Jaden Daniels is up there with them.
Yep.
But the difference is you might have the best backup quarterback in the country. What are your thoughts? Has he played like the best backup quarterback in the country in practice?
He has. And also don't forget wide receivers. We didn't get to hit on those yet. Talking quarterbacks, I mean, Jaden Daniels is looking phenomenal. Like I was talking about earlier, I'll be kind of like a broken record here. The intermediate passes have been looking the part. Like you said on Saturday, you didn't even see him throw an incompletion. So when you're talking about your starting quarterback, he's been intriguing as all hell. So he's a guy who I've been watching day in and day out. And then talking about Garrett Nussmeier, when you're talking about the best backup in the country, I feel like you could put him in that conversation. He's pushing Jaden Daniels every day. He's pushing that ball down the field. We've been talking about the connection with Chris Hilton. It's real. So Garrett Nussmeier has been looking phenomenal too. Best quarterback room in the country. It's an argument for sure. Best quarterback room in the country is an argument. They both look the part.
I will say this: Nussmeier's been more inconsistent than I expected in practice. Okay, I'm gonna get, because I do think he's one of the most talented passing backup quarterbacks in the country, and I think what he's doing with Chris Hilton this camp is special. I mean that it is really good the way that looks. There's been a lot of drills where he's just been just curiously sailed the receiver. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed this where I personally noticed that he looked better in 7-7, like live action type drills than like the little like passing drills, where they just do half line and roll out. Have you noticed he looks better in live action than passing drills, or is that just me?
And you're referring to Garrett Nussmeier there?
Nussmeier.
That's something that's fair to say. I mean, he's just a dude. He performs when you need him to. So especially in like 11-on-11, when there's pressure in his face, he can get inside, outside the pocket, and just do what he can there. So sure, I can agree with that in a sense.
I just think that one day he's going to need to learn how to be a little more check down friendly, and he's worked on that a lot, and he needs to be more consistent with that. I think as a passer, when he's passing within, say, 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, he's been very average or mediocre, right? But he will launch it downfield, and he will stretch your defense, and he will make your defense adapt to that. And I think that that's evident in practice. You're not going to be able to press coverage. You're not going to be able to run man. He will make you suffer. I think LSU has a good argument for the best quarterback room in the country. The only reason I'm not making that declaration is I don't know who USC's backup quarterback is. I don't know who Florida State's backup quarterback is. I assume they're not as experienced and talented as Nussmeier, because statistically speaking, they won't be, but they could be. But I think LSU's got a good chance to claim the best quarterback room in the country. Wide receiver. Okay, and thank you for making sure. I was about to just roll on out of the show and leave off our boy. All right, Malik Neighbors, one of the best receivers in the country. I think we can agree on that.
Top 3, top 5 at worst.
Top 5. Oh, well, I was just gonna say like top 10-ish, but yeah.
No, I'd probably insert him in that top 5 range. Malik Neighbors is as complete of a wide receiver as you can ask for, and today, we got to see him line up, kind of in a reverse role. So coming behind the quarterback, catching a reverse, and going upfield. So you're seeing him be utilized in a bunch of different ways, and Mike Denbrock's harped on that in a big way. So he's complete. I mean, he's a physical pass catcher. You can go across the middle. He's a vertical threat. He's physical when the ball's at its highest point. He's complete. So I could say top 5. I can argue that for a couple days.
And then behind him, do you think Brian Thomas has that number 2 receiver spot like set in stone?
Set in stone's tough, but he needs to be your second guy. He's going into his junior year now. His physical attributes are tremendous. He needs to step up and take that on, because underneath him is a bunch of youngsters and some unproven guys. So, I mean, for the most part, Brian Thomas needs to be your clear-cut wide receiver too and take on a major role and stay healthy. And I think he can do that, by the way.
I think Brian Thomas has just been quietly a beast. I mean, he's so consistent and reliable. We just don't talk about him very much because he's overshadowed by Malik Neighbors, no doubt. And he's just been so consistent and reliable. He's just there. He's your number 2 guy. And always will be. I think that he's just kind of getting brushed over. People aren't talking about him enough. He's a good player. He is big. He is every bit of that 6'5". And one of the things I noticed about him, remember I said I saw Shelton Sampson and thought it might have been him. Mm-hmm. Then I saw him and I saw, Shelton Sampson has that baby fat that he had. And he is now just muscular and toned and lean. I think he's going to be a rock solid receiver. Now behind him is where it might get messy. I think Kyron Lacey is going to be the first at bat for that number 3 receiver, right?
Yes, him and Aaron Anderson are going to be your kind of guys who rotate in that spot right there. Kyron's looked great. I mean, I know he had the hiccup with the fight last week and stuff, and his consistency is something that scares away a couple of people. But I think at the end of the day, Kyron's going to be a guy who you can rely on this season, and he's going to have to be consistent when Aaron Anderson's right behind you. Nipping at you, ready to get on the field. He's just itching to make some plays. So it's going to be fun to see what Kyron does this season, knowing that Aaron Anderson is just right there behind him, ready to take his spot.
Kyron Lacey absolutely mossed Sage Ryan in the back of the end zone. It was very impressive, and that was another throw from Jaden Daniels. He threw it up where only his receiver could get it, and he looked really good. Kyron Lacey was a menace on Saturday, so he looked really good. Now, Aaron Anderson was running with the 2s for the most part, right? So he wasn't, but he's such a different player from the last 3 we just named. He is a guy who is so good at what he does. He's going to be inserted into the game situationally one way or another, right?
He's just so electric with the ball in his hands that you can't not put the ball in his hands in SEC play.
Right.
You need to make him do what he does best, and that's get the ball in open space and go. Because he is so damn fast. Yep. You have to utilize him in every way, shape, or form. And I really do think Brian Kelly is going to do it. I think he's going to maximize his potential. If it's not this year, next year is going to be crazy. But I do think this year is going to be, something impressive.
Bubble slants, bubble screens, slants, little, just get the ball to him and let him get shifty with some space. That's the kind of athlete he is. And he's by far at what he does, that underneath stuff, just get an easy catch and make it happen, by far the best on the team. Mm-hmm. Now, Aaron Anderson, I noticed being so up close and personal on Saturday, I noticed something about him that I didn't even notice in high school. He is kind of like a small hit box, to use a baseball term. He runs very low and close to the ground, right? And it's like he has a small target. He doesn't have the catch radius that any of the last 3 we named or Shelton Sampson has. And that's why I think downfield for deep stuff, he's just going to have to be wide open. I don't think he's going to be as good as the other guys at like jumping up and going and get it. But I do think situationally he will be. And I think because of that, it's going to be tougher to get him on the field every single play, not because that's such a liability to have out there, but because there's so many other guys who do good things on this roster. Now, I think those are the 4 guys you're going to have to watch, probably get the most play time. Next up, you would say probably is Chris Hilton with the camp he's having, right?
Chris Hilton has looked so good, man. I've been so impressed with everything he's done. He's healthy. We got to talk to him today. He's healthy, he's poised, and he's ready to make an impact. He's been waiting, and, he's battled the injury bug for quite some time now. So to be healthy, to be ready is something important, and he's looked the part. He took a couple of first-team reps today, just kind of like getting his feet wet in that aspect. But he's looked phenomenal, and he would definitely be kind of like that 5th guy right there if you want to put him that low, to be honest.
Yeah, and then behind him, you're talking about Landon Ibieta, Kyle Parker, Jalen Brown, Kai Preen, a lot of true freshmen out there,
Shelton
right?
Sampson. Mm-hmm.
Shelton Sampson, and Shelton Sampson, who we had. Who's the next of that group to come out?
Yeah, I mean, so after Chris Hilton, it's tough because they're so young, but Shelton Sampson's looked the part for the most part. But I'm just such a huge fan of Kyle Parker, man. I love what he brings to the table. Yeah. He's looked so game ready for since the spring. I mean, he's just looked so phenomenal. Yeah. So I'd love to see him make an impact as a receiver this season. And if he doesn't make an impact as a receiver, he's going to make an impact in the special teams game. He's a speedster, and he's been a great punt return, man. Just a return specialist as a whole. Yeah. Even like back in the high school days, like he just killed. So it's going to be nice to see him and, maybe Aaron Anderson as well kind of battle for punt return and return specialist duties. But if we're talking strictly receiver, after Chris Hilton, it's probably going to be Shelton Sampson or Kyle Parker.
Yeah, and personally, I think which one of those two comes in the game depends on situationally.
All
Like,
situational, absolutely.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like if Brian Thomas is hurt, Shelton Sampson's going to be the one coming in of those guys, right? If Aaron Anderson needs a spell, you're going probably Kyle Parker. And Kyle Parker is very polished, by the way. That was the critique on him coming out of high school, was he's very polished as a receiver. Jaylen Brown, I think, might have like better measurable speed, that kind of stuff. But it seems like Kyle Parker's just a little better polished. But do you agree with me that after Chris Hilton, there's a bit of a drop off and the rest of the guys are just kind of, out there with Ricky Collins doing their thing right now?
Yeah, because it's tough to be a true freshman and play in the
Mhm.
SEC as a wide receiver. It's super challenging. Just the physical makeup of the guys. It's hard to get in
Yeah.
there and play against those talented, cornerbacks. Just these secondaries as a whole in the SEC. So absolutely, Sheldon Sampson's raw. Like you were saying earlier, Jaylen Brown is raw. It's going to take some time for him. Kyle Parker's polished, but there's still a couple steps you have to take to be impactful in the SEC, and I think he's inching
Yeah.
closer towards that as fall camp. As we hit its stride right now. But like you said, I wouldn't say it's just a crazy drop off, but certainly a drop off nonetheless.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I was trying to illustrate.
Mhm.
It's a drop off, but it's not like, oh man, after Chris Hilton, these guys can't play.
Yeah,
No, that's not what I'm trying to communicate at all. And by the way, when I say polished for a true freshman, right? I mean, not like he's not more polished than Malik Neighbors out there.
yeah.
Like you could tell the difference in those guys for sure. All right, so this was the one position group. You lost Jeray Jenkins last year. You lose Kashawn Butte. Might be a question that if this group is better than last year. What's your thoughts?
Depth wise, maybe better than. I'm not quite sure because there's just really not that like super senior leadership that you had in Jeray Jenkins. I mean,
Yeah,
Jeray's Mr.
Jeray Jenkins.
Reliable. Whenever you need a big time play,
Oh yeah.
just anything, you just give it to Jeray and he would make that play for you. And we saw that on numerous occasions last year. His numbers don't necessarily pop off the page, but what he did in the locker room and just situationally, Jeray was that guy for LSU last season. So better is tough. It's really tough to say because you don't have that super senior, but Malik's going to have to take on a major leadership role and continue to mature as the season goes on.
Conis Kelly's asked if Terrace Marshall, Lacey is the Terrace Marshall. I could see that. A guy who gets a lot of touchdowns and, is your third guy. I think the big difference between him and Terrace Marshall is he's going to have guys on his heels taking snaps away from him. I think Terrace Marshall was firmly embedded as the third receiver on that 2019 team. And Jalen Waddle from Alabama is the comp for Aaron Anderson. And I agree with that. Jalen Waddle is some steep praise. But I'm not going to say he isn't Jalen Waddle, but that would be a lot. But understand, Jalen Waddle wasn't Jalen Waddle at first either. Like, it took him some time to get there. I think that the receivers are significantly improved. I think Malik Neighbors was the best receiver last year. He's going to be a better receiver than he was last year this year. So obviously the one spot's improved. I think getting Kashawn Butte out of the mix and not having to force feed him some passes because you were supposed to have a first round receiver there, and he clearly was not a first round receiver. He ran a 4.51 and a 4.67 at the NFL Combine. That's not a first round receiver. You were force feeding it to a guy who was a 6th round pick is what you did to the offense. So having him out of the way is going to be better for this team, and I think Brian Thomas is going to be as productive as Jeray Jenkins. I think Brian Thomas could very much so fill that production. And I think Brian Thomas has more athleticism and skill than Jeray Jenkins. I think Jeray Jenkins was just, man, he had that dog in him. You know
Mr.
what I mean?
Reliable. Anytime you need to play, he was there.
He just was there, man. I mean, just mentally, the game was so good. I think Brian Thomas is a little more talented for him. But I think then if you're going to compare Kyron Lacey to what's his name, Kashawn Butte, I think you're better off there for sure. Mm-hmm. So you've got, of your top 3 receivers, you've got one who has an argument might have been better last year. I think receiver is going to be improved. I think it's significant, not greatly, significantly improved, but of the positions improving from last year. Every position group is improved. I think we're both in accordance with that, right?
Absolutely. I'm just intrigued. For offensively, yes.
On the offensive side of the ball, we'll see if we can get to defense next week. That's a little bit of a different answer. But offensively, all 5 position groups are improved, and I think 4 out of 5 are greatly improved, and 1 is significantly improved. Man, guys, don't be surprised if Jaden Daniels has a 3,500-yard season this year. Don't be surprised. This team has a lot of depth, so injuries, it's going to be next man up. It's not going to be like, okay, well, you're one guy. If Jaden Daniels gets hurt, the year's ruined. No, Nussmeier's going to come in and do business. Remember that 2011 team? Jordan Jefferson got suspended right before you had a fifth-year senior as the backup. And behind him, Zack Mettenberger. I mean, great teams have great depth. And I think that's the thing about this offense. It has a lot of good players, and that's why we see the ESPN computer ranking had them at number 3. So anyways, we're going to wrap up the show there. I appreciate all 200 of y'all watching right now, all the way to the end. I appreciate Zack for coming on. Zack, you had a great practice write-up today, man. Tell people where they can see that and where they can follow you on social.
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is right there on the screen, @ZNagy20. Twitter's where I'm putting most of my stuff for the most part. And you can follow us at LSU Country on Sports Illustrated on Twitter as well, posting practice reports, player interviews, recruiting news. And down the line, we'll get to the basketball, men's basketball, baseball. So you name it, we cover it over at LSU Country. So give it a follow, check out the site. And, as the next couple of weeks go on, we're going to be getting some primers going for that Florida State season opener and, wrapping up fall camp coverage.
Yeah. And guys, sneaky good follow on Twitter. He's a hidden gem on Twitter. Just trust me. Go follow him on Twitter. Appreciate all the work you do and all the great work you do at LSU Country, sportsillustrated.com. Y'all make sure to hit that like, subscribe button. We got some good content. He knows what I'm going to be referencing here, but I'm not going to say it out loud. I have a sneaky feeling y'all might want to watch next week's show. I am excited about the first guest we're going to bring on this year. I made a decision this year, just after seeing, how much Zack tore it up on the show last week, that I'm only going to add a guest on the show if they're good, if they have something to add to the current narrative. In the past, I've brought on a guest every single week, whether, it was a good guest or not. I just mixed it up, brought some guys in to be interesting. I'm only going to bring in good quality guests this year because we don't need to. I think the show gets better if we can just go hard in and, if we talk to someone who's interesting, but in a different way, like a past player. Well, talking about the 2003 LSU Tigers is neat, but people really want to talk about the modern news cycle. So that's the decision. I have a sneaky feeling you're going to want to hit that subscribe and hit that bell. I'm Preston Guy, staff writer at TigerBait.com. Thank you for watching your LSU Fix. We will be back next Monday at 8. Thank you, Zack.
Appreciate it.
All right. Night, y'all.